Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Adult Puzzle Podcast,
hmm
where we come to you weekly to entertain you, give you some gems to your ears, and I hope you're loving
Uh-huh.
us so far. Lamide, how have you been? How's your week been?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome back, guys. I've been good. I've had a really great week, actually.
Right?
Yeah, I have. I feel good. Good news here and there. I feel good. My body feels good. My
I
mind
know.
feels good.
So, I'm actually really excited for today's topic because this is a very typical type of thought process that I have usually at the beginning of the year, especially
Mm,
with my dad. And so um, I know there's so much to talk about, but I'm very interested to talk with you about this. We've never had this conversation before. I also think this is a conversation that is typically shied away from just because like
hmm
money is it's like a touchy subject. It's also something very
It
private.
is. It is across all board
Yes,
and all
yes,
institutions, the marriage
yes.
institution, corporate, everything. Money is just
Everything,
a very
friendships too.
friendships, sensitive
Yeah,
topic.
so sensitive. I know this because I felt it like when I was dating
Yo,
someone. Money was such a hard topic to talk about, and it wasn't because like he made it uncomfortable. It's just I just didn't know how to have certain conversations.
yep,
Um,
yep.
yeah. So for today, guys, we're talking about money, financial literacy, and yeah. I guess let's just like dive into. I'm curious. I have so many questions for you, Lamidi.
Shoot, shoot. You might
uh,
be surprised at some of my answers, but
do you know the
shoot.
funny thing? I am prepared to be surprised. Because again, like I said, money is such a private topic that like
hmm
you never really know how someone sees money or views money or manages money. Okay,
hmm
really side note, really quick before we dive into it. Yesterday I was with some friends and we were having conversations about
I
just like
saw
life.
Enjoyment Queen. You guys, sidebar, Lolade and
What?
Enjoyment, they're like 5 and 6. Brother and sister. Wherever enjoyment is going. Now, wait for me now, please. Wait for me. I'm coming.
Please, please,
Can I tag along?
don't
You
leave
know,
me.
and I'm like, well, carry on, carry on. I saw. I just want to let you know. I saw. I saw.
Oh my God, it was so fun. But we went out with just a couple of friends and stuff. We were
Uh,
just catching up and we're talking about just life and just, so many things going on. And
mhm,
somebody was saying how um, there's certain types of friends where they don't mind if they reach out to them for certain types of things,
mhm,
but just knowing that they have a certain boundary with that friendship. And we're just
mhm,
diving into that some more and asking like, oh, what do you like? What would that type of thing be? Would it be somebody reaching out to you to help them with like a business,
mhm,
um, help them babysit, give them some money? And I said, like, honestly, if somebody reaches out to me asking me for money, I personally, especially if it's somebody I don't talk to in a while, I don't see that as like, oh, shoot, why are they asking me? The way I see it is like, oh, they probably needed the money so bad that they had to reach out to me, someone that they don't
mhm,
necessarily talk to on a daily basis. And
mhm,
a few people were like, oh, for real? Like, I don't see it that way. For me, it's like, I'm not close to you, so why am I the person you're asking for money? So I was surprised. That's why in this conversation I'm expecting to be surprised because I know people see money very, very differently. And it expands down to how you were raised, your relationship with money over the years, and like the types of things that money has done for you or has not done for you. So
mhm,
I'm prepared to be surprised, long story short. But my
mhm.
my first like question for you or like that I was just like curious about was when it comes to financial stuff, do you set
Uh,
goals for yourself or do you have any goals?
um, the very general answer would be yes,
Mm-hmm.
but do I keep my end of the bargain like from the beginning
Yeah.
of the like from when I make the decision to the end is another question. But like,
Yeah.
do I usually have financial goals or targets sometimes? Yeah, Yeah, on a general note, yeah, yes,
What do
yes.
some of them look like high level?
Um, how to save a certain amount by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a commitment or like something I want to use the money for,
Mm-hmm.
for that. But like on a very expansive and let's say more deliberate things like, raising a portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
buying NFTs in today's world or like
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin or, putting your money in this, bonds and all that. I've never personally been successful with that, but
Yeah.
that's going to change this year because I'm going ham on all those fronts. But like previous years up until this, it's always been 1 foot in, you know, sometimes 2 feet in, and maybe I'll take one
Mm-hmm.
out. It's just been back and forth. I've never been quite successful on the more, deliberate and, committed end of like financial management or financial, you know, I don't know the other word I could use, but like that end, so.
Yeah.
But for like, short term and mini long term goals, like save up for
Mm-hmm.
this, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. Or I used to do that easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How about
I
you? Do
yeah.
you is that
For
an easy
me,
thing for you? Hmm.
I want to say over the past like I don't know, maybe 3 years when I've actually started to build out my own individual like financial wealth for myself, yes, it's been
Hmm.
easier because I think in the past when I was still very reliant on my parents, it's really hard to set financial goals for yourself when it's all dependent on like how much somebody gives you, right?
Hmm.
Um, so now I think yes, definitely I do set financial goals. For me, it's very, very high level. Like one of my main ones, and this was one that I knew I wanted coming out of college, was to get to a point where um, I can live comfortably
Mm.
um, with like my finances. And comfortably just means like I can afford the needs in my life, like
Hmm.
food, shelter, without like breaking my back or, worrying
Mm.
about the
Mm.
next whatever. So that's one.
Right. Mm.
And like you said, I did like what you said, the short term versus long term, because I think those are very unique things. There are things that you can do in the short term and long term. It's like
Hmm.
you don't really have much control, but it's something that you do eventually want to get to.
Hmm.
And that for me, that long term goal is again high level. I think I want to get to a point in my life where I don't have to trade so much of my time in for money. And I'll
Hmm.
explain because right now I do a 9 to 5. And if we're being honest, that's a lot of your time, right?
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
like what's giving me money.
Hmm.
Right. And I think this goes into like active versus passive income, all of that. I'm not one
Hmm.
to say, because you know how people be like, oh, I want to retire by 30. I personally don't think I would want to say I want to retire by, 30 right now because
Hmm.
honestly, my job gives me some type of purpose. And there are other things in this life that give me purpose, but my job and like the things that I do give me purpose. And I do like doing the type of work that I do. However, I
Hmm.
do want to get to a point in my life where I don't have to trade as much time for money. So if it's like with me starting my businesses and things are already set into motion to bring money back in, I would like that. So that's like long term,
But just to
goal.
even quickly add to what you said just before you
Yeah,
continue, and I want
yeah,
you to just press pause on that long term goal and remember what you want to say next. But
yeah.
what I was going to add to that was the people that really find it hard or find it easy to say, I want to retire by so
Mm-hmm,
age, maybe 50 or 45, whatever.
mm-hmm,
I think of people viewing work as corporate 9 to 5. So for someone like
mm,
you and I who are more value driven,
mm-hmm,
if you find joy in the value you're bringing to people, like I don't think Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk see what they do really as a 9 to 5 where they want to
Right.
retire, because you're changing people's lives, you're adding
Yes.
value, it's fun for you, it comes naturally to you, you're
Yes.
motivated to work. So
Hmm.
them saying they want to retire, they were never really doing that. It's not like, I don't know if you catch my
I get
drift.
what you
Basically, what I'm
mean.
saying is like the people that say that are people that like, I don't want to be waking up 5 a.m. I've been leaving work,
Yes.
so
Yes.
time spending some hours in traffic, stuff like that. Yeah, so I can see
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead,
No,
go ahead. I
exactly
think.
what you said ties into what I was saying is because to your point, people, higher ups in certain types of companies, they're still
Mm,
working, but to my knowledge, or I would assume that they have more control of their time. Like they don't have to
right.
work 10-hour days if they don't want to. They
Uh
have
huh.
people that are helping them out with that. And that's for me is like ultimately a goal, but they're still doing
Exactly.
things that give them purpose and keep them driven and all of that. So ultimately, yes, I do
Exactly.
agree. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, go ahead. I
Yeah.
think you're about to address short-term goals. You finish talking
Um
about.
yeah, so short-term goals, like I said, I think on ultimately it's to be able to live comfortably
Mm,
with my financial status. And comfort for me has a certain meaning, right? It's to feel
mm,
safe in my home, to have the types of food that give me health, to have access to, things that bring me joy. And to do all those things, how much do I need, right? So
mm.
that for me is like short-term financial goals. Like, am I bringing in enough money for me to live comfortably? And not just me, but like, the basic stuff of you're caring for your people around you,
Mhm,
family, you're tiding, all of that, all of that, all of that. So yeah, that's
mhm.
short-term versus long-term for me.
No, that's interesting you said that, because, and I definitely agree with everything you said. And I think on my side with
Mhm.
financial goals, I find I've found out over time, I think compared to you,
Mhm.
you probably gained a lot more financial independence before I did per se, if we're
Mhm.
just being honest and I'm being
Yeah.
vulnerable with you guys. But the truth is, it's also different from where I'm coming from, like in Nigeria. So like
Yeah.
I've always looked at money like I'm not naturally a big spender. So
Yeah.
I see it like if I make good enough, I
Mhm.
can save well enough. However,
Mhm.
my mom says that's a bad notion to have, because mom still feels if it's 10 naira, you should still have to, save from that. If it's 10 million, you still have to save from that. Basically, the principle is he who is faithful with little can be faithful with a whole lot more.
Mm.
You understand
Mm.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've always battled, that's where my battle is. I feel like, or I used to feel like my position with her would be my daily expenditure or the purchasing power of my money against the market
Mhm.
versus my small income,
Mhm.
there's really nothing left, to realistically save. And their
Yeah.
daily needs. However, I think the key word that we would be discussing a whole lot more, which is why I love this topic a whole lot, and hopefully we can both learn from one another and the listeners as well, is the key
Yeah.
word is delayed gratification, right? No matter, like, so that's the key word that I've used now propel the idea, and I found balance in it and saw the reason in what she was saying, no
Yeah.
matter how it is, So if it's 10 naira, whatever, and you would typically, have a night out of having suya or drinks with your friends,
Mhm.
usually you have to be willing to make some sacrifices. If
Mhm.
it's like, okay, regular expenditure would be money on data. I'm talking from the African perspective because data usage and purchase is quite different in the States, but like
Yeah.
in Nigeria, let's say you're used to buying, 10 gigabytes per month. You
Mhm.
must be willing to say, I'll do five, I'll do five. So that's
Yeah.
definitely automatically reduce costs. So basically, we'll talk about it a whole lot more over the episode. But I think the key word to achieving those financial goals, which we'll address, would be uh, de- delayed gratification, which leads me to my next question for you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when did you start making financial positive decisions? When did you feel like you arrived at the
Mm-hmm.
mindset where you started making smart, positive
Yeah.
decisions? Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. Yeah, when did I start making good financial positive decisions? Okay, really quick before I actually address that question, because something you
Hmm.
said about delayed gratification just
Hmm.
ignited like an aha moment. I don't know if you've heard this before, but I've heard this from a bunch of like older people. And I know
Uh-huh.
our generation is very unique. We have a very good ways of thinking about things that are advanced. However, there's certain things that I personally think we've come short in. And one of those things is not understanding the meaning of delayed gratification. We are a
Mm.
generation that we want instant gratification. And let me try and explain
Mhm.
what I mean by that from a financial perspective. So I think nowadays everybody just is looking for that quick, like, how do I become a millionaire very quick? How do I start my business and just explode? And I'm not saying that can not happen.
Mhm.
However, as compared to the past where it was very known that, okay, you know what, I'm going to probably need to work a 9 to 5 for so and so years, and then gain experience, figure out how things are done from the industry.
Mhm.
And then if you really do have that entrepreneur or mindset, because I know a lot of people back in the day used to work for companies for like 50 years. I don't understand how they did it. But
Mhm.
if you had that entrepreneurial mindset, that's when you now use some of the income that you got, kind of converting
Mhm.
your active income into passive. So you use
Mhm.
that money to start something else. Versus now, I think we're very used to like, oh, wait a minute, I just want to, you know, get this money quick and fast. And
Mhm.
hearing you say that really like, again, ignited something in my head where I was like, you know what, that's so true because
Mhm.
it's so easy for us to just want to see like financial wealth in 1 to 2 years when,
Mhm.
especially if you're not born into it, because I know that's a different situation. But
Yeah, yeah.
delayed gratification is something that you really need to embody, especially for financial growth. Yeah.
Mhm.
But coming back to your second question on, or your question on me, when did I start making financial positive decisions? Honestly, I think, like I said earlier, I think it was when I started to develop like my actual wealth for myself. And when I say wealth, I don't mean like millions, guys. I'm just talking about when I started to build like my own money and make my own money by myself.
Mhm.
Um, but that was when I realized, like, oh, shoot, okay, you own money now. So you need to, like, you make all the choices for this. And so
Mhm.
you make all the decisions for this. And if you
Mhm.
don't make good decisions, you are the primary person it's going to impact. So that was kind of the point where I knew, okay, yes, I needed to do something. However, prior to that, I would say it started little on a smaller scale as a kid. So I was one of those
Mhm.
children where I got an allowance. I want to say I started
Mhm.
getting an allowance at like 15. And for an African home, that's not normal because most of my friends, they got money when they needed the money, if that makes
It
sense.
isn't normal. I can confirm that to you.
Right?
And I
It's like, oh,
appreciate your parents for that anyway,
it's
but go
my
ahead.
dad. My dad is like, yeah, he's the financial guy. But it's like, oh, mom, I need to go out. I need, 2,000 naira, and then they'll give it to you. Mine was
Mhm.
like, my dad would be like, okay, Lade, you have 5,000 for this month.
Mhm.
Do whatever you want. And I remember there was one time he told me, he's like, if you spend the 5,000 today, that's your problem. Don't come to me until the next month. And
Mhm.
so at that young age, you really start to realize, and again, it was on a smaller scale because this wasn't necessarily my own money, and I wasn't thinking about like, okay, how am I making sure I have savings, investment, da, 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 da. It was just more so, how am I making sure that I'm spreading this money across the entire month? One. The second thing was like, if I now wanted a more expensive purchase, like let's say I wanted to buy something that was more than the 5 grand, that's when the
Mhm.
thought process of like, okay, you know what, I have to keep 2,000 here and then add it to 2,000 next month and then 2,000 the next month to be able to afford this 10,000 naira thing in so and so
Mm,
month. So as a kid, getting an allowance really did teach me about savings and how to rationalize my spendings over a period of time to really stretch out however much money I got. So that's really when I started like thinking about, okay, money and the value it had to getting you what you needed. But in terms of deciding for my income and how I wanted to spread out my spendings on investments, rent, savings, travels, all of that, the complexities of life, that really started, I want to say, right after college when I got my first job. But how about you?
um, so, so I think the first question is what necessarily can we, the first question I'll ask myself when if I'm
Hmm.
going to answer the question would be what do I classify as, positive decisions? You
Yeah,
know, I like
I
to
like that.
break things down.
Yeah.
So it may be on a very basic level,
Hmm.
positive decisions would mean not putting my money in like a gambling
Mm, yeah.
gambling away my money, not engaging in bets or whatever stuff like. So if it's by that, I make positive decisions all the time. Like
Hmm.
I don't necessarily buy what I don't need. But if you want to flip that and say positive decisions like, um inquiring about maybe I don't know, like inquiring about how can I invest in something small, maybe enter a bank and be like, what are the or look up share prices and
Hmm.
whatever. I don't know. I don't think I'm there yet. Or I don't think I discovered that early rather.
Hmm.
But positive decisions on a very basic level, I would say from early, again, you would hear my mom a whole lot because for me, she is the, you know, financial literacy teacher because
Yeah.
she doesn't want a repetition with me because she feels like she was bad with money earlier on. So
Hmm.
she's always been the driving force, whether it's books or lectures or seminars or whatever. She's been driving that, and all credit to her.
Hmm.
She's been massive on that front. So from early as well, I would say I started making financial positive decisions. I understood the good and bad of what money does and what it can bring, what you should put your money into, what you
Hmm.
shouldn't be putting your money into. I think I also understood from early that money doesn't like to be seen, that kind of thing.
Mm,
But so like there's so many key and fundamental lessons that I learned early which drove my decision. So like if there was a scam, there's a 90% chance that I would not put my money into it because mere looking at it and by the virtue of the questions I would ask the person selling the scam to me,
mhm.
I would have been able to deduce maybe like a minute in that your money doesn't need to go into something like this. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So like pretty
just
early,
paying attention.
I would say 10, 10.
That's
Like
pretty
yeah,
good.
I'll say 10. But again, I'm just talking from a very basic level.
Yeah,
That, of course, has grown over time. Maybe now not at the speed at which so many people,
yeah.
yeah, but like, yeah, I would say
Let
pretty
me,
10. I knew the basics. Yeah.
that's pretty good. Something just came to mind. So there was something when you were talking about what your mom like instilled in you.
Hmm.
There was something that my dad, and I don't even know if he will remember it. He like wrote something up for us. It was one New Year. This was a while back when I was younger, like a teenager. And he was
Hmm.
basically just like advising us on how to the buckets of how to divide your money when we start earning. And I
Hmm.
swear to you, that's actually what I use now in my day to day. So it's
Hmm.
it's the it's the threes divisions, one third, one third, one third. So
Hmm.
you're earning money, and this could be from, different streams of income, or it could be from one, stream of income, whatever it is. Just you're earning
Hmm.
money, you should break it down into three. So one is
Hmm.
the first bucket of your needs, and these are like your bills, like the things that you need to do. So you're talking about
Hmm.
your rent, you're talking about payments for, whatever
Hmm.
it is, the things that absolutely need to be done. And if they're not done, there's probably some not so great repercussions from them.
Hmm.
The second bucket of the one third is the wants. Also for the needs, I think there's also like dynamics to that too. So I know for certain people with like religion, the tithe is like an absolute need and everything
Hmm.
that is like into the buckets of needs. The second bucket is your wants. And think about this as like the things that bring you pleasures, right? So I'm not talking rent or like basic food. No, I'm talking like, oh, you just want to have a good time, go out to this
Hmm.
fancy restaurant. You don't need to, you just want to. That's the one,
Hmm.
that's that second bucket. These are, oh, you want to upgrade your closet, you have the basic clothes. That's the second bucket of the wants. So and then the third is where you really have your savings and your investments. And that's the passive where
Hmm.
you spread out. So your savings and your investments are kind of like doing their thing. And the reason why
Hmm.
this has helped me so much is because how I do it is I actually have three separate accounts. One is my uh I want to call it my bills account. So
Hmm.
that's where all my rent, everything goes out of. So I don't
Hmm.
even necessarily go to that account unless I'm going to like pay bills or stuff like that. The second
Hmm.
one is my pleasures. Like these are where my trips, the things I should not really necessarily need, but
Hmm.
hey, I want to spoil myself.
Indulge. Yeah.
Exactly. And then that third is the savings. And I think that's where I need the most work in my own personal financial life.
Hmm.
And we'll get to that later. But that just reminded me, and I thought to share because it's very easy if you think about it. It's just three buckets, right? And
Hmm.
I personally feel like if you do it well, it
Hmm.
helps your life because you're not keeping track of like there's three unique accounts. The savings you shouldn't touch. I mean, your investments, you should definitely like keep it up and make sure it's growing for itself and you're investing into the right things. But the
Hmm.
bills, you just automatically use that card for all your bills and the necessary things in life. And then the wants is like when you want to do something that is indulging yourself, you just know exactly where to go to. So I thought
Right.
to share. I hope that helps somebody out there because it has definitely helped me through my last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points. Great, very, very, very great points.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Would you say like I mean, obviously, there are definitely negative financial things and decisions, but what would you classify and consider those as?
Hmm. I think one would be spending more than you make.
Oh my
So,
gosh,
like,
yes.
guys, I think it's a very, like, again, maybe it's just the way the world has evolved as a
Hmm.
place, right? It's just now so easy a trap to
Hmm.
fall into, you know,
Yeah.
spend it, again, like you said, there are just so many guilty pleasures, you
Hmm.
know, going on a trip, diamonds, or nice car, a bigger house that
Designers.
you can afford,
Hmm.
a phone that you don't even know all the functions, but it looks nice and it'd be nice to say you have, you know,
Yeah.
uh, you know, going out to eat where you could easily eat at home. Maybe not, guys, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. Going out to eat
There's
is a
rest at
good
home.
thing. It's very, very nice. But if you're going out to eat, I don't want to put a number on this because so people like me, if I can afford it, fine. But like the truth of the matter is, if you're going out to eat out of 7 days a week, you're going out to eat 6 times. You really need to check yourself,
Hmm.
and it's just it is what it is. And I'll use Lade as an example, not to put you on the spot or anything.
I was like, what did I do?
Lade, she can afford to do that if she wants to, right? But I don't think she would necessarily want to do that. Even sometimes I find her questioning herself like, oh, do I need to? She'll be like, no, she's entering the kitchen and she's gonna cook. You're like, it's a slippery slope basically
Mhm.
with food and some other things. Like last year, I looked
Mhm.
at how much Uber Eats
Oh my
took from me.
gosh. Jesus Christ,
Hey,
that's
and I
me.
felt like I was cursed. Like I looked at the
That's
money I could
me.
have saved if I just entered the kitchen
That's me, oh.
and just did what I had to do. So, like, those are some really negative, and here and there. So, basically, spending more than you have, spending more than you make. It's a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Also, I would say borrowing people money without accountability or without proper
Mm.
documentation. No,
Mhm.
so the person that gives money lends, Abby, lending
Mhm.
people money without accountability or proper documentation. Guys,
Explain.
always document your shit. This is also another guilty habit of mine. I'm a very optimistic guy. I like to see the best in people. I, I just prefer to be sweet. Like, it raises emotions in me and chemicals in me that I feel comfortable with just being nice to people. So
Mhm.
that also is a slippery slope for me and a whole
Mhm.
lot of people because I'm the guy that would say if we went out, I would want to pay, whether a guy or my guys or whether a chick. If you ask me for money and it was available, I would actually give you the money. And this is the bad part. What if a week passes by? I didn't write the amount down. I didn't do anything. I just gave you because what? A friend asked. I might forget the amount after a week
Mhm.
and necessarily might not ask you back for that money again. So imagine that spread across different people. So let me use a dollar equivalent. Today is $50, tomorrow is $100, today is $50, tomorrow is $100, sometimes maybe $200, you know, and I'm doing like that for a whole lot of people. I'm not asking for the money back. That's completely unbudgeted for expenditure
Mhm.
that I have been indulging in across board consistently. It's a terrible habit.
Mhm.
Whereas I have a friend, if he borrows you $1, he would ask you, do you intend to pay me back or not? If you have committed to paying him back, your name goes into his sheet, maybe borrower's list or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it sounds cruel, and which is why I love this episode so much because you would hear me break things down to the simplest form and be as blunt as possible. As with
Mhm.
Lolade, she would do the same. Because if he borrows you $1, your name goes into that list. When he would also ask you again, when do you intend to pay back? Like he's
Mhm.
giving you all the decision making abilities and
Mhm.
he's setting it on your own terms.
Mhm.
So you give him all those info and he'll be like, cool, he gives you the money. Once the day for you to pay comes, he doesn't feel shy about asking for his dollar back. I
Mhm.
know you, everyone listening now, I know people give you a flack or look at you bad, or you might think they will look at you with side eye that, why is he asking me for $1? Am I not, yeah, 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 yeah. Why is he asking me for $10? Yeah, are you not bigger than that? Lolade makes so much money. Lamide makes so much money. You're asking me for $20. Such a, yo, ignore them. Ask for your money. Nobody is entitled to your money. You earned that.
Mhm.
You don't steal. You're not a thief. So basically, accountability and documentation, I feel, is something that has gotten a bad rep, but
Mhm.
lack of that opens you up to a very, very, very painful ending
Yeah.
as long as financial decisions are concerned. I'll open the floor to you too as well to share any, negative financial decisions or mechanisms or systems that you know about, that I
Yeah.
may not have said. Yeah.
No, I 100, 1,000, a billion times agree with you because, like, starting from the second one, just that the borrowing people money and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they're accountable, taking accountability for when they're going to pay you back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I personally, I try to do that, but it's definitely it's a slippery slope because, like you said, there's always, especially within the African like community, there's some
Mm-hmm.
type of negative stigma that comes with like, oh, can you believe he keeps asking me for his money, da 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 da. But
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the same energy that was basically passed on when the borrower came to borrow money. And I don't think there's anything wrong with borrowing money. Like we all do it, right?
Yep.
It's just knowing, it's kind of like making a promise, right? Okay, you're going to give me
Mm-hmm.
this. I promise to give it back to you at a certain time. And out of
Mm-hmm.
respect for the other person, I think you just need to meet your end of the promise and all of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely agree with you. And if you're the person that is borrowing somebody money and they're not meeting to their end of the bargain, then don't feel shy to, ask for it and not, think about all the behind the scenes cheat chats and whatever. For the first thing you said, I definitely agree. I will say this. I think in our generation,
Mm-hmm.
I have seen this happen before, and I want to explain it to somebody where you guys remember the bucket that I divided. One
Mm-hmm.
first
Mm-hmm.
bucket's your bills, your needs. Second bucket, wants and your pleasures. The third bucket is your savings. If there's a Gucci bag that is costing you $5,000
Mm-hmm.
and you have $5,000 in your account collectively, like your bills, your pleasures, your savings, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot afford that $5,000 bag because if you pay for the $5,000 bag, you have nothing left. And I think
Preach.
that like affording thing
Mm-hmm.
is, it's something that like a lot of people don't really deep, and especially now in the credit world where it's like, oh, you can buy things on credit and pay it back over a long period of time. In
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, if you can't comfortably pay that thing back, you can't afford it. And that's one thing that I personally feel like is the number one negative, like you said, financial decision and ways to spend your money. Know what you
Mm-hmm.
can afford, especially if you break it down, like within your pleasures. If you have 4 grand in your wants accounts or just side things, and there's a $5,000 bag, you can't afford that $5,000 bag because you're not going to chime into your bills account and your savings
Mm-hmm.
just to afford the
Mm-hmm.
bag. So that's one thing I definitely want to say because living above your means is such a thing, especially in this like flex culture world that we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that I want to add is extreme risky investments. And this is something that I've seen happen. There's so
Preach.
many things out there.
Why did you never hear
Bitcoin,
of MMM?
MMM, no. No.
God, go ahead, go ahead, just go ahead.
But I understand like investment is a very wise
Hmm.
financial thing to do. However, I think investment is also very risky and it can go from wise to unwise real quick.
Right.
Real quick, especially if like you're investing everything you own. Like you have no backup. Because I
I've
even think with,
never, I've never
yeah.
understood it, Lade.
Okay, let me tell you what it is, Lamide. It's that
Mhm,
instant gratification that we spoke about earlier. So I've seen where people are like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm pretty sure this stock price is going to grow in the next like 1 week. So if I put all my money in there, I'm going to get this
bigger
X
reward,
profit.
right?
And it
Mm,
happens for some people. I'm not going to take away those people that it does happen for and those people that are very calculated. However, there are a lot of people that it doesn't work out for. You just can't control certain things with investments. The markets are so volatile. The stock
mm,
markets, the economy, especially with like this new world that we're moving into where it's like on to the next thing. You don't know when this
mm,
current thing is going to just wear out and just not be the biggest buzz anymore. So that
mhm,
one, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I have lost money. Not like a lot of money, but like I have
Mm-hmm.
seen my so and so amount slash in half in a minute, in a time frame of 30 minutes. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what? So extremely
Like
risky
film trick.
investments. Literally like film trick. And you're like, Jesus, I thought investments was good for you.
Don't kill me.
But that's
Yeah,
fine, and
God.
everything you said too.
I just like to mention a few parts. So, you know, earlier when we're talking about, the whole borrowing thing,
Yeah.
like Lolade said, borrowing is normal, lending money is normal, and
Yeah.
also just to speak up, in terms of paying back, there are people who could be in like bad spots,
Hmm.
communicate that, you
Yep.
can't pay back on time, stuff like that. Once they communicate that to you, you can choose to be understanding and stuff like that. Another quick follow up with that would be, don't borrow what you can't do away with, right? And that's something I also
Mm.
learned from my friend.
Yeah.
He and he's such a beautiful guy. He's my best friend, or yeah, my best Kevin. He taught me so much. Like, he really is a
We need to
life
have
partner.
Kevin on the
Like,
pod, FYI.
yeah,
Kevin, you're coming on.
Kevin, you're coming on, and he's such a life partner, life friend that I have made, because
Yeah.
he's been an overall blessing to me, and he's the one that also taught me that, like, don't borrow what you can't do away with. So he
Mm-hmm.
has a mark, or he had a mark in school, so he would borrow. I think his cap was 5K.
Mm-hmm.
I think his cap was 5K. So, he would borrow that to you. And the reason that was that, if by chance you can't pay him back, he can close his eye and move on. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
won't ask you again. We call it vex money. Like, he will just close his eye, he will get angry, or he might be pissed for 2 seconds or a second because you didn't keep your word, but like,
Mm-hmm.
he can move on and never look back at that money again.
Mm-hmm.
But if if 10K came out of his pocket, which wouldn't to an average Joe, but if 10K
Mm-hmm.
came out of his pocket and you couldn't pay him back, that's big money to him and me
Right.
back then. And he'll look at you like, he would have this feeling, maybe not hate, but dislike anytime he sees you or your name comes up. And he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want that on his conscience. So,
Yeah.
just two things that I thought to note. And
Yeah.
MMM, like, if you heard me say that
Yeah.
earlier, when talking about risky investments, it was one of the biggest Ponzi scams in the world.
MMM.
And
I'm glad I didn't hear of
I
that one. Oh.
I personally did not fall, like, I fell victim to it, but it wasn't direct,
Yeah.
because but a whole lot of people made money from it. Like, I'm sure right now, Nigerian listeners, I don't know if we have listeners in other parts of Africa, in fact, all across the world,
Yeah.
some people hear that, those three letters, and like, it's
Trigger
very
warning.
triggering. Trigger warning.
Sorry,
So,
guys.
like, MMM, hey, Lade, MMM dealt with people.
I'm gonna
And
look
like you
it up.
said, people selling cars, people using house rent, people
Mm-hmm.
using insurance money to invest in this thing. Because it was such a well laid out Ponzi scheme. And it's
Wow.
like the pyramid thing now, the
Oh
regular Ponzi,
yeah.
the pyramid scam.
Yeah.
And because a whole lot of people were believing it, it
Mm-hmm.
kept on being sustainable. But a single leg breaking off meant the collapse of this. So, not to go into details, but
Yeah. I,
yeah,
I feel you. That's
it,
crazy. That's so
it, it,
wild.
it definitely was a time. It definitely was a time.
That's yeah. And it just like it makes you think about why financial literacy is so important. I think for me,
Hmm. Hmm.
like knowing that money, yes, I know, we always say money is not everything, and I believe money is not everything.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we're being honest with ourselves, money is one of the ultimate currencies in this world. It's where we acquire value in our day-to-day society.
Mm-hmm.
And being financial, um, like smart and making financial smart decisions is going to benefit your day-to-day and long term. So like how you make priorities, how you make investments, not putting all your money's worth, your family's worth. Like, have you heard that happen where literally husband and wife, the husband would literally take everything they own,
I've
or the
heard though.
wife, to invest
I've
without
heard.
letting each other know? Like, financial literacy is so important. Yeah. What
Hmm.
do you think about that?
I think it's so important, and we must never get tired of hammering it home.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the stigma with discussing money matters. Let's,
Yes.
as a community, especially as a black community, we
Yes.
must we must get over the mindset that I don't want to ruffle
Snapping
feathers.
my fingers. Yeah.
Bro, that's not how the Jewish community became what it is
Yep.
today. Like
Yep.
they're not afraid to discuss money.
Yep.
It's serious business. It's a conversation that must and should be had. It's
Yeah.
so I mean, as a community, as friends, as partners, or as whatever it is, whatever institution that you have, just have the conversation, because
Yeah.
financial literacy is important. It equips you with knowledge and skills
Mhm.
that you need to manage money effectively and assets or whatever it is. So
Mhm.
if you want to build a legacy, just know earning those skills or acquiring those skills and the knowledge is a necessary step for you to get to that goal, or to achieve that goal. So it is a
Yeah.
very important part of, success or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Can I say something really quick? Because something you said there was so important and so powerful.
Mm,
When you said as a community, especially as a Black community, I think right now it's so beautiful to see that. I mean, we still have a long way to go, but I personally
mm,
think as Black people, we're starting to build our wealth, right?
mm,
Through entertainment, sports,
mm,
different industries, tech, like, and
mm,
it's beautiful to see. And I think for us to keep that up, we need to start instilling some of the trends, the what lessons learned into the younger generation. And
mm,
that was something, in my opinion, that was omitted in like the school systems, and not just school, because I don't just want to put it on school, but even like households, right?
mm, mhm,
And so I think that's so beautiful because yes, you're right. We need to be having these conversations as a community. I think we spoke about this like a few episodes ago in season one, where we were talking
mm,
about how do you know your worth when it's your first job or something like that. And a
mhm,
lot of times you can't really tell that unless you're able to see somebody as an example and then leverage that, right? It's like you don't know
mhm,
your starting point sometimes because you just don't know. You don't know what you haven't experienced. Like you don't know what you don't know. And how you would know is to have those conversations. So I definitely agree. Like we need to have those conversations as a community and empower each other to learn from one another. And I'm not saying learn like copy, because I think everyone's
mhm,
situation is different, but be able
mhm.
to learn and expose yourself to different situations that you might not be exposed to if you weren't having these conversations or doing certain type of research. But
Well
I
said.
agree.
Well and beautifully said. But I would like to ask you, so what are your thoughts on savings? Like, I know you had mentioned earlier, I just want to
Oh,
bring you that back to that.
back
I know you had
there.
mentioned, so share with me your thoughts on savings
I love
and
that.
how that works out for you. Mhm.
Yeah. I personally think everyone should save. I think so.
Mm,
I know
mm,
it's easier said than done because there's certain times where like you only have enough for your needs. And
mm,
so it's like, how are you even going to account for long term potential, like things that you want to do, savings? But
mhm,
I think it's something that at least should be tried out, right? No matter what your financial situations are, try your best to ensure that your day-to-day living habits are within your means, so that way you can have a small portion to save. My dad said this to me when I was younger, same to Lamide, like the way Lamide's mom instilled so many things about financial planning. That was my dad for me. And he always said this thing where it's like, when you start working and like you start making your own money, have and try your best to have 6 months worth of how much it costs you for your bills in your savings. And he
Mm,
was coming from the perspective of corporate is so um uncertain. Like people
mm,
get laid off, the economy crashes, whatever the case may be. And that one is not up to you. However, what you can control is ensuring that, God forbid, if something bad were to happen to your financial situations,
mhm,
you have enough runway to get you back into your feet. So that's the rule
mm,
of thumb that I try to apply in my life, where it's like, I think everyone should save. I don't think it's going to be like it's realistic to say everyone should have at least 6 months, because I know everyone's situation is different and we all go through phases in our lives. Some months you
mhm,
can save more, some months you can save less, especially if you're an entrepreneur. But
mhm.
I do think baseline, everyone should save. I personally think so. What do you think?
The only caveat I would add to that would be
Mm-hmm.
saving should be goal driven. So
Mm,
for the longest, I have a problem with just I've had a problem with just the general notion or idea of saying save, save,
mm-hmm.
save.
Mm-hmm.
The more I learned about what financial institutions do with money and how that
Mm,
whole world works, because you're
yes.
talking from an individual, a common, man in the street or woman in the street's
Right.
point of view. So it's
Yes.
good, technically for you to save,
Yeah.
but I have learned to like flip it. What happens at the back end with that money? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I understand, over time I've gotten to understand what money is, the process of how
Mm-hmm.
financial institutions use money, all that. I can't go deep on today's episode. However,
Mm-hmm.
my bottom line of what I'm trying to say is saving should be goal driven. Don't just be stacking up money in your account
Yeah.
because you think you have money. Yeah, on paper you do, but another person is using your money to buy a Porsche. Another person is using your money to build a house in Banana Island. Another
Yeah.
person is using your money to pay salaries or whatever, or trade or whatever the thing is. So like save money with a goal. I think once savings become goal driven, it
Mm-hmm.
changes your perspective and it even helps you save more. And
Yes,
like
because you're
Ladi said,
driven. Yeah.
you know, what her dad instilled to her from early. So if you're training up a child by saying, "Oh, you like that bicycle? You like that? Save up for it." You know what I'm saying? Like all the monies that all the things that your uncle give to you, aunties, uncles, they give you 1,000 bucks today, $500 tomorrow, 1,005, 10K. Save a part if you want to get the bicycle. Like make them understand the beauty. So set up juicy goals for them. If you
Mm-hmm.
save up this amount, I'm gonna add the remaining money for you. You stuff like that. You
Yes,
know what I'm
my
saying? Like
parents did that.
if you
Yeah.
tell a 21-year-old in Nigeria, I'm using a comfortable family now, and maybe you
Mm-hmm.
take them to a dealership one day and you say, you look at that car, and you tell them, oh, do you like it? And the kid, boy, your God, is like, oh yes, I do that, I do, mom, whatever. And you'd be like, if you can save up, even if it's 30% of the amount, and you tell them if you can save up 30% of that amount this within 5 months or before the end of the year, I'll give you the rest of the money and you can have like it builds a kind of mentality subconsciously
Mm-hmm.
for them that there's a culture, there's a system to saving. There are things I can change in my life for the better. I can afford luxuries. I can,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Just attach goals to it.
I
So
like
if it's
that.
also from the health perspective, you sit your kid down or you sit your partner down early that, look, I don't want to end up in the hospital and not have money to be able to pay myself out of there, or the doctor is not attending to me because I don't have something. Like, God forbid that would never be our portion, but you have to lay the scenarios down on
Yeah.
the table, attach the goals to the savings, because frankly, when people just say save, 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 it irritates me because saving for
No.
what? The bank is using my money to chop life. Like, do you understand? Like, and that
Yeah.
annoys me so much because the concept
Yeah.
of banking at the apart from the apart from the customer serving side of it, which I love, helping people manage,
Mhm.
build wealth, all that is good. They have so many good traits. But the part I don't like is the free money that they just eat. Like, do you understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, if you
Yeah.
guys understand the concept of the back end, probably you will see the world, or you see money the way I do. But like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And guys, Lamide worked at like banks in Nigeria, so he actually understands the shit. I don't even understand the way he understands. But what you said is so true, like saving with the goal. And that reminded me of something because I think something that my dad also used to tell me was money, especially when you stack up money, right? Let's say you have
Mhm.
50K in your account 2020.
Mm,
That
mm.
50K is not worth the same thing in 2023 because of
God
what?
bless
Inflation.
you.
So,
Lolade, God bless you. And
yeah,
that is fact.
yeah, yeah. And like the value of money, unfortunately, in this society that we live
Bruh,
in,
you said it all.
depreciates.
I don't
Yeah,
need to speak on it anymore. You said it all.
yeah. Wouldn't it be nice, Lamide? I was actually thinking about this when when we talked about talking about this. Wouldn't it be nice if you know how things inflate? Can
Uh-huh.
our bank accounts be multiplied by the inflation rates?
Tell them all. Tell them,
That
man.
would
I
be so
wish.
nice.
I
That would
wish.
be so nice.
I
But
wish.
that's that's also the reason why like it's really good. And I think, savings accounts have like compound interest, but if you guys know anything about compound interest, before you really fully get money's worth out of that interest, like you have to have so much money in your
Yep.
account. And so I
Yep.
think that's why investments is where you really start to look at how can my money grow for me,
Mm,
right? And so I
mm,
wanted to ask
mm,
you, Lamide, just your perspective, like savings or investment. I personally don't think we have to pick one or the other. I think you should do both. But to
mhm,
your point, maybe your savings are more goal focused and like you're saving for something, and then you're
mhm,
investing wisely to have to have your money appreciate for you. But what do you think on the concept of savings or investment, or savings and
Ah,
investment? Because I do have people, sorry, um
yeah, go
I
ahead.
do have people that like they all save, they don't invest, or they like
Mhm,
invest, but they don't really know what savings is, and they don't have a savings account.
mhm.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think both are beautiful,
Yeah.
but again, it depends on what works for you and what you're looking for in what your
True.
situation is. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, like, if you're preaching investment to someone that makes, again, I haven't fully understood the purchasing power and money aspect of the United States yet, so I'll keep
Hmm.
using Nigeria.
Yeah.
I'll allow Lola to maybe do the math for you guys and equate that, whatever. But like, let's say preaching investment opportunities to someone that makes less than 1 million per year, or 2 million per year, or even 3 mil per year, it's kind of a stretch
Yeah.
because by the time you take out bills, monthly expenditure, all that away from the total he makes per annum, he or she would be stretching their self thin to be
Yeah.
able to fulfill that investment requirement.
Can I chime in
And
really quick?
the yes, please.
1 million naira, I just put it in, is
Okay.
two five $2,500 in America. So guys, that should help with
Okay.
what Lamide is saying,
Perspective.
right?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And that is, I mean,
Yeah, I feel
it's
that.
just not the same. Like, you're not preaching to the right audience, right?
Yes.
So I think both are but savings on the other hand to someone like that would be stacking up so amounts per month, whatever.
Mhm.
And they have a goal in mind. I want to take my kids to somewhere fancy, maybe a neighboring country, Ghana, whatever, or I want us to have a fancy meal during
Mhm.
Christmas or whatever. So it depends on who you're selling the idea to.
Mhm.
However, I think I would go on a limb to say that investment is the riskier option, right?
Definitely.
Right. So, and hence the bigger rewards, so to speak.
Yep.
So again, it like Lorde said earlier, and like I've said, it depends on where you're standing and
Yep.
what's comfortable for you. You understand what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
investment is what I would love, or
Mhm.
I would lean towards, but like
Think towards, yeah.
I must be ready to bear the consequences. Like I wouldn't run to you when I lose $1,000. Do you understand what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like
Yeah.
I knew the risk, which is another thing I think we should mention. I think Lade has mentioned in passing is always understand the risks of
Mhm.
whatever you getting into investment wise. Always fully understand the risk. I think if you do and you evaluate everything and you're comfortable with putting your money in, then
Mhm.
that's all good. But like, don't go in and say, "Oh, I didn't know that." It's your responsibility to know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so
You're putting your
yeah,
money, you should
yeah.
know what you're getting yourself
You
into.
should know what you're getting into, because yeah, nobody's gonna help you. It's a dangerous world out there. Is eat or be eaten with investments, to be
Yeah.
honest, because
That's
that's
so
why the market is
true.
as volatile and
So
fragile as it
true.
is. People are putting money, people are pulling out. They're like, it's a crazy world out there with
Yeah.
money. So yeah.
Yeah. And to add to what Lamide said, I think also, and this is something that I know I have to do, like it was one of my goals for this year, is educate yourself on the investment market, because there's so
Mm,
many things to invest in, and I know it can be very overwhelming. Like I'm speaking from my own personal experience, like, oh,
mhm,
stocks, crypto, NFT, the educate yourself. You don't have to be the professor of investments, like knowing it all, but
mm,
know what you're getting yourself into, like Lamide said, before you go into it, the
mhm,
risk and everything. Because I think we just hear, oh, this stock market is doing well, and then people like put their money in without even knowing all the different players. Why is it
mhm,
doing well? Is it because there's a specific trend? Is it because this is
mhm,
happening in the market? Yeah,
mhm,
so do that research beforehand. And yeah, I know it's hard because that's where I'm at right now, and I'm trying my best to be better, but it's definitely something that I'm telling myself, okay, I need to be better at knowing the investment
mhm,
market and all the different players first to
mhm.
really uh do it better.
What are some of the things you say for? Just give me a quick list or quick mention,
Oh,
quick honorable
yeah.
mentions.
I think if I'm being honest, um, for me, it's
Uh-huh.
long term, like business
Mm,
ideas that I have just to have like some type of initial capital. I know that sounds
mm,
like a lot, but it's definitely a thing. Like for example, I know like with AP, we did put our financial money into this, but all of that came
mm,
from savings that that I had. And I don't know if that was the case for you, but that's definitely a thing for me. Like I have different ideas that I want to eventually take part of, kick off in
mm.
years to
That's
come, and
beautiful.
I have
Mm,
money
mm,
there. Just long-term life, in general, like you mentioned, your health. God knows what's going to happen, God forbid, but just having something there that you can rely on if life just happens. Um,
yeah, yeah.
Money stored for rainy days. I'm not necessarily a very material person. It's not a bad thing if you
Mm,
are, because I do know people
mm,
who like save up for a car, and that's beautiful because it's like you're doing good financial planning. I would say I'm
mm,
more so an experienced type of person. So if there's a
mm,
trip that's costing me, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, whatever the case may be, more than
mhm,
my regular pleasure buckets cannot afford, then I start
mhm.
saving for it. So that's also another bucket I think in savings for me. How about you?
Um, I think your first point. savings would be for like rainy day kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
emergencies, at least you don't want to be stranded, right? So like
Yeah.
this money would just be there in case it's a don't touch. Um
Yeah.
oh
Yo,
man,
really quick, I
trust
want to
me.
say something very random.
Yeah.
Did you know in case of incasity was like a Nigerian thing? I said it to one of my like American friends recently,
Ooh,
and
and
they
it
were like,
couldn't.
"Lola, what?" I
What?
was like, "Yeah, in case of incasity." I really said it with my chest and all, like it was correct.
Bruh, I say that a whole
Me
lot.
too.
And
Me too.
well, we're introducing them to a whole new
It just sounds
world.
good. Like they get the
It
point.
does. In case it's like, it sounds sweet, sir. So I'm
I
like,
say,
bruh. Oh, that's
uh,
interesting.
but keep
But
going. Sorry.
yeah, I think but I don't know if I'm really good with long-term investment on that scale like you have,
Yeah.
because I've never, again, being vulnerable, I don't think I've ever made that much to be able to see that ahead or
Mm-hmm.
to able to look that far ahead. However, I'm good. I think I will be able to say I'm good with short-term goals and
Mm-hmm.
investment. So like I need money for something and I've set like
Yeah.
my plan for the year, whatever, and saving up for we're supposed to get something personally, whatever that is.
Mm.
Yeah, I can
And
see
that's
the
really
target and
good.
be like, how far can I stretch myself in terms of either thirds or halves
Mm-hmm.
to get to what I want to get, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty good with
That's
short term goals and investment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good because you're identifying where you are, you're planning accordingly, and as your financial situation evolves, then that planning evolves. Yeah, I
I
think
also
that's what
think
you should
that's
have.
important for
Yeah.
exactly. I think that's important for people to understand. Understand where you are
Yep.
in the financial bracket and place
Mm-hmm.
to your strengths. What
Yes.
works for A does not necessarily work for
Work.
B. So
Even what may have worked for you last year may not work for you again this year. So
exactly,
always identify
exactly.
where you're sitting. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly,
No,
exactly, exactly. And I
for
think as we
real.
round up, a good question would be, what are some of your financial investment tips, for people out there or for
Oh.
people in general? What are some
Yeah.
financial
I'm
investment
gonna
tips?
generalize this somewhere if that's okay. I'm gonna do what are
Yes,
just like
please.
overall financial tips.
Yeah, so nobody holds you and says, Lolade
Because
said.
investments, me too, I still need those tips. So financial tips
True,
in
true.
general, like you said, definitely identify where you're at and plan accordingly because we said this before. Some people you can save, some people it's just not realistic, it's not feasible at the point you are, but you want to walk towards that. Some people you can invest more money, some you can't. So that just identifying where you are and planning accordingly.
Hmm,
I think the other thing, which is also an advice for myself, and I know it's burdensome, but I've
hmm,
seen people that it works for, and I'm like, you know what? That's actually a great tip. It's tracking to the best of your abilities your spendings. So ensuring, and that tracking may be detailed, it may be semi-detailed, it may be high level, but ensuring that you have some type of accountability of where your spending is going. Like on
hmm.
average, how much do I spend on food? On average, how much do I spend on rent? Like, have all of that so that way you can easily move things around and make wiser decisions based on what you're seeing in front of you, like the tracking that you're doing.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the last one, and I think we've said this over and over and over again, it's like a two in one type of thing. Educate yourself on the entirety of financial literacy, right? Investments, not living above your means, and how you can successfully live within your means. So, how can you afford so and so and so with this amount of money? And how can you get to the goal or to the target that you want to get to. And I think the reason why this is, I said, to double sided is that has to evolve, because you're, as you're advancing, and sometimes unfortunately maybe you get to a stagnant point, you want to continue to educate yourself on how can you make more money, how can you diversify your portfolio more, how can you get more in your investment returns, how can you save more, all of that. So just constantly educate yourself and make sure that you're living like within your means. How about you?
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Um, for me, I have only two things.
Mhm.
And your last point kind of ties into my first point,
Mhm.
and that is research. So my first point is
Yes.
research. Do
Yes.
your research. Do
Yep.
your research. Do your research. Once you've done your research and you're confident in
Mhm.
your investment, then go for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, do your research. I think that's
Yeah.
self-explanatory
Yeah.
enough, right?
Yeah.
So just do it. Do it. If it's long, if it's stressful, just do it. It's
Mhm.
important for you and for your investment. And my second and final point would be, compared to savings, where I told you guys, or where I said I'm more of a short term
Mhm.
savings guy. Yeah, with investments, I would prefer think long term on
Yep.
all your, like, don't look to get anything from that investment in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Like, put the money in, forget about it. Like, just leave it be. You can check and maybe know it, like, follow trends and see, oh, but like, don't think about pulling that money, or like, if you've done your research and it's a credible platform, which
Mhm.
is why my both points go hand in hand. If you're sure of the organization, you're sure of the platform or sure of the service, whatever it is, in terms of like short term, long term, I would lean towards going long term, right? Put it in, and maybe, you're thinking 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years. The longer, the better. That's how investments work. And I mean, Lodi, I always use this analogy and I'm giving myself headache, but
Mhm.
imagine I bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2006.
Mm.
Hey, God. Again, I'm giving myself unnecessary headache because that time has passed, right? But bruh, I'll just leave it at that. I would literally be boiling.
Yeah.
Mind you, within that period, it's had an incredible rise, it's had falls or whatever. But no matter how I want to swing the pendulum, I would still have gained 20 times. What am I saying? 20? Maybe 100,000 times worth my
Yeah.
initial buy. So, yeah, just always lean towards long term in terms of financial investments, and I think you'll be fine. And yeah.
One last thing to add really quick. So usually when you're investing, especially if you're going through like a service, like I use
Yeah.
Fidelity through my 401k, blah, blah, blah. They'll usually ask you for your risk level. And it's just like understanding the profile that you want to put most of your money in, if it's
Hmm.
conservative or aggressive. And conservative is like what Lamide just said. You're investing for the long term. You want to see your money grow over a longer period of time, and that's where
Hmm.
I recommend most people go into. But I do know that some people, they want that aggressive, like, okay, just put my money in what's going to get me money in 2 years. But be willing to take that risk if it doesn't give you money in 2 years. And that's all I would say, is because know where your risk profile is, because
Yep.
that shit can give you heart attack,
Yo, I
especially if
watch
you're
all these
investing all that you have.
movies. I watch all these movies and like some scenes where like he hits them that the investment is off, or like something went,
Mhm.
amiss, whatever. That face, I can never get out of my head.
It's
It's
so
like, say that
funny.
again.
Yeah,
Bruh.
yeah,
Or when you
yeah.
realize you're broke. Oh God. If you were to play out in a Nigerian movie, you would understand and
Ah,
explain a whole lot better. The
damn.
dramatics are intense and insane. But
Yeah.
I think what we're just trying to preach is, financial literacy is important to
Yep.
get you to in today's world, no matter how you want to look at it, never be afraid to talk money with a partner, with family, with
Mm-mm-mm.
friends. It's an important subject that we can't afford to shy away from. And my prayer and our prayer for you and for ourselves is we make better investments and smarter financial decisions this year
Yes.
and onward. So
More
with that
money.
said, more money, cha-ching. We need more bread, more chicken, Let's get to the money. So with that being said, we've come to the end of another episode of the Adult Puzzle
Yes.
Podcast. Thank you for rocking with us each week. Thank you for rocking with us today and listening to the end. It's our
Mhm,
pleasure to bring this to you weekly, and we had fun putting
mhm,
this together for you. We hope you had fun listening to it. Please like, share, subscribe, rate us on whatever digital streaming platform that you're listening to us on, whether Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google. We're available everywhere.
mhm.
So please like, rate, share with family, friends, coworkers, and please do subscribe. And yeah, another interesting thing with the Dot Puzzle podcast this season is we're going to be having regular Twitter spaces. So be on the lookout for that on Twitter, where we'll be having fun and interesting conversations. So feel free to chime in, listen, and if you want to speak, do do attempt to do so. Yeah, we have a whole lot of wholesome content planned for you this season,
Yes.
and we look forward to having you throughout. Thank you guys so much, and we want to say bye bye. Lady, any last
Bye,
words?
guys. No, that's it. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Bye, Lamide.
Bye. Till next week, guys. Bye.